Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're taking a seriously nostalgic, heartwarming trip right down memory lane. We're going to explore the absolute quintessential 90s Indian summer vacation. You know the one, that much anticipated trip to Nani's house, your grandmother's home out in the village. This was a whole different era, right? Way before smartphones, before constant Wi-Fi, a time when a summer break meant a genuine escape into nature, family, and just, well, simple joys.
So, do you actually remember that magic? Just think back for a second to that innocent excitement of packing your bags. I mean, kids were so eager to leave that even their teddy bears were packed up and ready to go days in advance. It was all about the thrill of holding those physical paper train tickets in your hand and eagerly rushing to the bustling station, knowing you had a solid month of absolute freedom waiting just around the corner.
All right, part one, the magic of the journey.
Now, once you were actually on the train, the ultimate prize was obviously the window seat. As the train chugged along, you'd watch the gray concrete city just slowly melt away, completely replaced by sweeping green fields and grazing cows. And then, the landscape would shift again into dense forests and rolling hills, looking like something straight out of a storybook. It was this incredible visual feast that would captivate us for hours on end. It literally felt like a portal to another world.
But, travel back then wasn't always perfectly smooth, and honestly, that was part of the fun. It was a real multi-leg adventure. After boarding the train, you might have a sudden, unexpected stop or a minor travel scare, like a random jolt that would make you panic for a split second. But Mom and Dad were always right there saying, hey, don't worry, we're here, everything's safe. Once you finally got off the train, it was time to cram onto a dusty bus heading straight for the village stand. And the absolute best part? Stepping off that bus and seeing Mama Waila, your uncle, standing right there with a huge smile, ready to walk you the rest of the way to Nani's house.
Moving right along to part two, simple joys, village life.
Village days had this wonderfully unstructured yet somehow perfect rhythm to them. Mornings were all about high energy, just running barefoot to the orchards for mango picking. Then the afternoons were meant for escaping that intense midday heat, totally crashing under the cool, inviting shade of those massive trees. And the evenings? Well, they were reserved for pure community excitement, like heading out with everyone to the bustling village mela or fair. Oh, let's talk about those mornings for a second, because really, what is a summer vacation without mangoes? But climbing those trees was basically a game of roulette. Catching that first sweet, ripe mango right as it fell from the branches, pure bliss. Literally the most delicious thing you could ever taste. But then you'd eagerly bite into a green, raw mango and wow, it was so incredibly sour your entire face would just scrunch up. Luckily, every kid quickly learned the local trick. You just add a little pinch of salt, and suddenly that intense sourness completely transforms into this perfect, tangy delight.
And those raw mangoes had another brilliant use too. Nani would take them and whip up this magical elixir called panna. It's a traditional cooling summer drink made specifically from those tart raw mangoes. Let me tell you, served ice cold under the shade of a massive banyan tree, it was the absolute ultimate homemade remedy for beating that crazy summer heat. Absolutely nothing matched the taste of Nani's secret recipe.
Which brings us to part three, adventures by the river. The local river was essentially nature's grandest playground. You'd spend hours out there with Nana, skipping flat stones across the sparkling water, getting super competitive to see who could get the most skips before the stone finally sank. Then you'd wander down the bank to meet the local fishermen, just marveling at the sheer size of their intricate, hand-woven nets. And if you were really lucky, the boatman would actually let you sit in his wooden boat for a short ride near the shore, where you could lean right over the edge and spot these flash of silverfish diving deep into the cool water. Right in the middle of all that exhausting river play, it would finally be lunchtime. Nani would always send a lovingly packed meal for the entire family to eat, right there on the riverbanks. Just sitting by the water, passing around fresh food, and eating sweet mangoes together, it reinforced this really beautiful lifelong lesson. True happiness lies in sharing and eating together. It was just a profound, simple moment of family togetherness that really stuck with you long after the summer actually ended.
Next up, part four, flying kites and afternoon play.
I mean, what is a breezy afternoon in the village without flying kites? But as we all know, it wasn't always smooth sailing. Eventually, despite your absolute best efforts, that kite would inevitably get tangled and stuck way up high in a tree branch. And that initiated the classic kite rescue operation. Step 1, do not panic. Step 2, Dad or an older cousin would scramble to find a really long bamboo stick. Step 3, with careful, painstaking precision, they'd prod and dislodge that fragile paper kite while all the kids watched anxiously from below. And finally, step 4, the sheer, unadulterated triumph of getting it back in the air, flying high against that clear blue sky. And as the sun goes down, we hit part 5, the bustling village fair. The mela, or the fair, was an absolute sensory explosion. By evening, those dusty fairgrounds magically transformed. They were decorated end to end with colorful flags and illuminated with these bright, warm lights that just cut right through the dusk. There were traditional games set up at literally every corner, and rising high above the whole scene was the towering giant wheel, the jula, pulling you in with a promise of thrilling heights and a spectacular view of the entire lit-up village. And then, of course, there were the mela treasures. You see, this wasn't about expensive electronics or branded toys. It was all about highly tactile, simple things. Getting sticky fingers from eating mouth-watering hot jalebis right out of the oil. Choosing a traditional lattu, those wooden spinning tops, just like the ones your parents played with when they were kids. Picking out a brightly colored wooden toy car. Or trying on rows and rows of beautiful, sparkling glass bangles. These physical, beautifully crafted, simple items just held so much incredible value to us. And long before the era of glowing iPads and on-demand streaming, audiences were completely captivated by Kathputli, traditional Indian string puppetry. Just seeing these vibrantly dressed wooden puppets dance around and tell ancient folk stories under the flickering fairground lights, it was completely mesmerizing. It was this rich, interactive cultural performance that honestly kept children and adults alike utterly spellbound for the entire evening. Finally, part 6, the wealth of memories. After all the noise, the lights, the food, and the games, the night would eventually end. The vacation would wind down, and that brings us to this incredibly powerful final thought from Nana. Memories are indeed life's most precious wealth. When we look back at these 90s vacations, it was never about the money spent or how far across the globe we traveled. It was about these simple, totally disconnected childhood moments. The mangoes, the train ride, the river water, the village fair, these are the real treasures that stay in our hearts forever. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to ask you, what memory is your most precious wealth? The simple joys of the 90s remind us that true connection often required being completely disconnected from everything else. So in today's hyper-connected, always-on world, how can we step back and recreate just a little bit of that unhurried magic for ourselves and for our families today? Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you in the next explainer.